God.
Everybody wanna see my glands, yeah. Everybody wanna see my glands, yeah. Everybody wanna see my glands, yeah. Nobody wants to touch my hands, yeah. Hi.
Guys, welcome back to the Try Not to Laugh Challenge.
Doing it
You
again.
guys love it, so we're doing it
We're
again.
doing it again. It's gonna be crazier. You know why it's gonna be crazier?
Why?
Because we got a guest this time,
Oh.
and he's definitely more talented than all of us.
Post in the
really
comments
funny.
what you think who you think he is, or what
Yeah,
you
post in
think
the comments
he is.
right now.
Yeah.
Before we show you right now, his name is Gus Johnson. This isn't my show, but I'm on it. We're hoping that because you're here, this is gonna trend. That's our hope.
All right. So yeah, you know the rules. No touching. 30 seconds to make somebody laugh. Person in the hot seat has water in their mouth. They spit or drip or dribble or just burst. You know, then that
They're
person
out.
wins. Yeah.
Noah's going first.
Yay!
I'm gonna go first.
Welcome to the Los Angeles, North Hollywood reenactment of King Arthur and the Swords in the Stone. Here is how it happened. I'm a poor boy, and I just pour. Oh, wow!
I'm sorry, you cannot show up literally penetrating a man's butt. That's actually what you did.
Whoa! Oh my God! Oh my God! My baby's eyes won't open! My baby's eyes won't open! No, they won't open! My baby's eyes!
Watch this. Hi, yeah, Domino's? You're my favorite pizza place. Watch this. Hi, yeah, Pizza Hut? You're my favorite pizza place. Hold on.
Oh, it's coming out his nose!
Hi, 911? I'm naked.
I was trying to breathe, and then I was suffocating myself. I accidentally drowned myself by shooting the water in my
Stop
own
wandering
nose.
around.
Olivia's not even playing the game. She's just...
She's just lost.
Your mom said you and I need to reconnect a little bit better.
No touching.
Hold on, what? Did somebody just say drugs? No, bro, can I get some drugs? Hold on, no, I didn't think, no. I've been looking for you all week, and you still ain't gave me drugs. I gave you $10. No, what?
Bobby, I kicked you out of here last week!
Oh, okay, I gotta go.
Oh my gosh. Really good job, Gus. Good job, Olivia.
Gus
Keith,
Gus
everyone.
dedicated right away.
Yeah.
There was commitment
I did
on
not
another level.
And then you were my stepdad.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it was
Yeah.
a
He
lot
was
of
your
layers.
stepdad with a boner. Let's put that in there. He got the shake weight in there.
It was a
I
lot.
didn't even notice.
You didn't notice?
Oh, he had a whole
Oh,
shake
wow.
weight in his
You didn't
pants.
feel it?
No. I thought it was your arm.
All right, who's going next?
Sounds real. I'll go. I want
All
to
right,
go.
Keith.
You want to go?
Yeah, I want you guys to
a little
make me
slippery,
laugh.
Keith.
I've been going through some things.
What did you do? What was that?
She's weird, and just to get away from me.
Hey, have you seen my pump? It's getting real bad this time. Do you think you could help me out again? I don't have.
Just saw Black Panther.
Ugh.
That's hilarious.
Hi, my name is Adrian. I'm 13. I'm auditioning for the new Disney sitcom. It's called Jungle Girl. And I'm going to audition by singing Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Somewhere.
You're doing great.
Over the rainbow.
You're flat.
She hasn't developed yet.
Hello there, class. Hello there, everyone. My name is Miss Janine, and I've been brought in to show you the miracle of life. Maybe you want to just look at the scars.
Oh my God.
Let me see.
What? Scars? Is there something wrong with him?
Who's
1,
next?
2, 3, 4, 5. 5 out of 5.
I'll go next.
You go next?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sweet.
All right.
Have you seen Coco yet?
Stop.
I haven't.
No.
I just got kicked out of a Baja Fresh. For murder. I think this is the first time I made you laugh. Is this what it took?
That's a good one.
Appropriation?
Welcome to Los Angeles. This is a new workout to help build a strong pelvic bone.
Oh my God.
What?
Did that?
You got me, Court.
Yeah, I told her 6:30. I don't know where the hell she is. You seen Mom? I need to munch some nips.
Oh my God.
I kept the storyline going.
Oh, I need a chiropractor. Oh, I need a chiropractor. Oh, I need a chiropractor. Do you have any recommendations?
Olivia, now, out of respect for you, I've been studying on my Mandarin, so I got a song for you.
Wow, Olivia, you did not make it through any of them.
No, because you guys were all so funny.
There's been times where you've made it through all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
but I do the little trickles, you know, but everybody gave me like an explosive.
Yeah.
Surprise.
Gus continues to commit more than any of us ever have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, were we
So-
rolling or?
You know, that was really fun.
Can I go next?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll go next.
You're probably wondering who I am. I'm gonna show you. I just snotted, but I'm the collector! I'm the collector! My has eyes! I will come for you with snot and with eyes!
Ah!
Oh, this is gross. I'm so embarrassed.
Hey, Coach, it's Daisy. Did you get the results back for who made varsity? Come on! I didn't make
Oh my
varsity.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I was too. I worked for months. You need a car, you need a loan. Remember, Hank's backyard is your home. Hi there, my name's Hank, and if you need a loan, I want you to come to my house because I will personally deal with you and give you some money. That's pretty much it. I'm here to sell my loans.
No!
Goodbye.
But if you want to buy some let me know, and right here, my has eyes!
Get off of my commercial.
My has eyes!
You guys are stupid!
Jesus Christ.
That was so gross.
The cake that I baked you, Court.
Oh, damn.
Hi, I'm Clarissa, and I'm here, to help you learn how to make friends. First step on to make friends. This is crazy. This is so crazy. What do? We just have a time, don't we? Just have a joy time.
Wow, you're still in it.
I
Okay.
put on pants. I'll go next.
Okay.
They're more than good.
They got aluminum in them.
Oh my God, the setup.
Okay, so we got the fire out. The unfortunate thing is the cause of fire was actually spontaneous combustion. We found your older brother. I think he was in the midst of some sexual act alone in his room. I can show you what's left of the body. I just need your consent. Are you sure? Okay, I have nothing for you to sign. I will bring out your brother's body. Just so you know, every man has what he's into. I believe this may have been another person, but then they burned.
Then they burned.
Hola, have you seen Coco? All right, adios.
This is the man that's afraid of an F chord. Never meant to cause you any sorrow. Never meant to cause you any...
If you don't get me in the first 3 seconds, it's significantly tougher, but I almost always laugh in the first 3 seconds. With all of you, I almost did. Great work.
Yay!
Zach.
Good. Last but not least.
Okay. All right, so do you know about the Mandela effect? How, like, the Berenstein Bears, what people thought it's Berenstain Bears, they thought it was Berenstein Bears. So, there's a crazier one. The 2007 movie, The Last Mimsy. That's not how that you pronounce the title. It's actually pronounced Barbershop 2. Yeah! Ah! Dang it!
Uh-oh. Did somebody call 911? You didn't? Okay, hang on. Hello, 911. Yes, it's getting too hot in here. Whoa. Just kidding. So we put the fire out. We found your brother. We found him. It must have been spontaneous combustion. There was a butt around it, but that obviously is tissue.
Damn it!
I would now like to introduce Dookie Stain.
Yo, what's up, everybody? Can I get some claps out there? Come on, give me some claps. Yeah, I go by the name Dookie Stain, and I want to introduce to you my first single. It's called Dookie Ass. Here we go, Dookie Ass. That diarrhea, that Dookie Ass. I said that Dookie Ass. I said that diarrhea, that Dookie got a pass. Now pass up the ass.
Hi, my name is Sarah. I was born with duck feet, and it was really hard for me growing up because I grew up on a farm. Anyways, can I sell you the sword?
I'm so sorry. Here, Nancy, let's go. I'm so sorry. She's not okay. At all. Completely unokay.
Can I sell you the sword, mister?
She walked into a 7-Eleven. Nobody saw any of those people ever again. They didn't walk out of the building. They were just gone.
Sorry, guys.
It was because it was air and I was expecting water and it made the sound just went.
Gus, I think you're officially the champion here.
Yeah.
Not only did you not laugh, but I think you made every single other person
Yes,
laugh.
yes.
For
Yeah.
sure.
This was fun. Thank you, though. Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
Thank you
it's
so much for
awesome.
being on.
Yeah.
Gus, where can people find you?
Look out my name, Gus Johnson. I do stuff on YouTube, short sketches. They're like 30 seconds, so I won't even waste your time.
Sick. Heck yeah. We love you guys. Check out the other Shout Out Loud challenges if you haven't seen them. They're really good. Post in the comments who else you want us to bring on. We can
Turn
also
on
do
that
that. Hit that
Yeah.
bell so
Check
you don't miss
out
the next
Gus.
one.
Woo!
Love you.
Bye.
Hey guys. So it's Try Not to Laugh, and we got Gus Johnson again.
Yay!
We also got Damian Haas back in the house.
favorite boy.
Before we begin, I want to point out that this son of a bitch has not laughed once.
Not one.
Not once on this show. He is a titan.
What?
I don't know.
I'm trying. This is a healing process for me. I haven't laughed in years.
Yeah.
Who wants to go first?
I'll go.
Start it off easy.
Yeah.
Arnar, the bride. Did you see the bride? Do you see the bride? Arnar, look at the bride over there. Oh my God, look at that. You see the bride? It's a bride. It's a bride. Do you want the bride?
Dude.
No? Okay.
Thank you for coming to my one-man show, a musical retelling of the story of the Hollywood classic, I Am Legend. I see these zombies. My name is Robert Neville. I was in Independence Day, West Philadelphia, born in... Hey!
Why did you give me an injured dog?
This is my character, the Disney prince who's getting broken up with. Yes? Why, yes, my love. Of course I can talk. Yeah? Yeah? That's great.
Time.
Where's Andy? We gotta find Andy. We gotta find Andy. All the other soldiers haven't found Andy. We gotta find Andy. Where's Andy?
Thanks for coming back, class. I know last session was really rough practicing orthodontics. You're still gonna get your dental degree, don't worry. We don't have the normal prosthetic teeth to work on today, so I went back into old memes thrift store, found something we could operate on as practice. Dicks out for Harambe. Like those chompers. We're gonna work on them today. You can practice our root canal. You know, my favorite thing that they do in TV shows is this. Come on, please. Look at this. Wow, 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 wow. This is really messed up. An animal was shot. I need you next time. I need you next time. Please call time.
Time.
All right, sport. Your mom wanted me to explain to you puberty, so here we're getting help from the puberty penguin and Elaine, the fairy of growing up. Elaine, take it away. I haven't been touched in years. Elaine, what does that mean? Somebody, please. I'm so lonely. My cats can only keep me so warm at night. Like, oh, Elaine, sounds like you've got a cough there. Yeah, it comes from not kissing someone on their soft, sweet lips. Penguin of puberty, take it away. You're gonna be experiencing some changes in your body. Sometimes your balls are gonna drop. Thank you, Penguin of puberty. I know it's a flamingo.
You've heard of the classic Hollywood hit Kong Skull Island. We now take you behind the scenes for the tumultuous shoot of its predecessor, Kong Dull Island.
Yeah, I don't know, boss. The monkey hasn't really been doing anything for the last 2 hours. He actually seems pretty docile. Doesn't appear to be a threat at all. He hasn't been eating or even navigating the waters at all. There's a bunch of snakes over there, but he doesn't seem to have any issues with them. Again, there are no altercations, no plot narratives that would drive him to be violent or turbulent in any way. I'm still rolling, by the way. I don't know if you knew. Should we cut? He's not, I'm telling you guys, he's not doing anything.
Time.
Oh, damn it.
Who's up next?
I'll do it.
All right.
It's
Time to
Kenny
break
Bacon.
his Johnson.
Can you
Finally
break
do
it?
this. Can I get Gus Johnson?
This is like the NBA playoff, well, the game before the playoff game. I don't watch basketball.
I'm really embarrassed. I had a specific bit that I had planned for you. And I specifically asked for a prop that I needed for Simmons. You know what they give me instead? Persimmons! It's not persimmons! Why do I keep crying? Persimmon doesn't work. Honestly, I may have said the wrong link because I don't really know what a persimmon is. My head looks so large. Whoa! Whoa!
Dang it!
What the hell is a persimmon?
Hey, girl. You know, I was thinking maybe go back to my place, light some candles, talk real smooth, go to my bedroom. Maybe we could file our taxes. Then, you know, lay you down. Spread it out, you know what I mean? And then, oh, you know what's next. We'll graduate from the University of Phoenix. And then it's time for the finisher. Right as you're about to explode, we'll both look into each other's eyes. Read the Bible.
Yeah!
That's right. Wait, hold on. One more time. Read the Bible. And then have sex.
Yeah!
It's time.
No!
I was so close because I remember the read the Bible and I was like, are you going to use the same track?
Yeah, I would have laughed. Oh no. Oh no.
mouth control.
What was that?
I figured if ordinary comedy wouldn't work, maybe I'd just, just throw a Hail Mary.
Okay.
Hi, sumimasen, arigato, miku. Gomen nasai. Sora. Where's Andy? Really questioning my entire life right now.
Damn it, we had some drip. Okay, you got me, Shanye.
It was a dark and stormy night in the desert. Thunder was crack-a-lack-a-lack and all over. I'm still gonna do it anyway. And Pennywise was at it again? Oh no! Yeah! Whoa! What will he do next? Why do I have this on?
Mikey, is the boom in the shot? Okay, good.
Say, that's a nice milky pair of tits you got there. I wouldn't want to bother you, but you see I'm teasing and I'm a hungry guy. I could use a teat or two in my mouth. I don't know if you heard me say, but I ain't got no teeth, so I ain't gonna gum up your little nips there. I just want a little slurp and I'm out your hair. Just a little slurp, that's all I'm asking. Come on, you got two of them. Give me the right one, save the left one for your lady back home, know what I'm saying? Just give me a little sip from the nip. Don't be a dip, man. Let's pop them out. Let's crack that whip. God, you're one stingy motherfucker.
If there was not like abject horror battling the comedy within me, I would be laughing real hard.
Sit down, children!
While known to many from the most affected areas, the 1985 Austrian wine poisoning is often a hazy memory to those in Europe and entirely unknown to those outside of it. When asked about it, people will mention the unwitting consumption of hazardous chemicals and a mass public panic, but the details will be muddled or contradictory. Most sources with precise information are left untranslated, and misinformation about the event is commonly repeated through English publications. So what was the Austrian wine poisoning? During the 1980s, Austrian wine had a reputation in Germany as a cheaper alternative to domestic and Italian wines. Often found in grocery stores, these wines were made specifically to meet the high demand for sweetness from German consumers, and the sweetest wines could consistently be priced the highest. The chief difference of Austrian wine, however, was that much of the industry had been arranged for mass production. First, vineyards would leave the grapes on the vine as long as possible, allowing them to ripen. If left for long enough, the producers would gain the legal right to label their bottles as the sweet and lucrative Predikatswein. These ripened grapes would be harvested in late summer and shipped to manufacturers who would ferment the grapes in large vats. The resulting wine would then be transported to bottlers in bulk. The relatively high quality achieved by this process allowed Austrian winemakers to undercut the prices of older, smaller-scale wineries who were more established, and mass production made for a more reliable source of wine. But after years, this production grew from prosperous to suspicious. During the 1970s, the amount of Predikatswein being produced surpassed feasibility, and Austrian investigatory bodies began seeking warrants to test this mass-produced wine in order to discover precisely how these seemingly impossible numbers were being achieved. Without evidence incriminating particular wineries, however, the courts refused to grant these warrants. Even if they could investigate, the Austrian authorities were understaffed and overworked, allowing the wine industry in the country to operate largely unchecked and unsupervised. In one instance, a wine merchant arrived at a cooperative with his tanker to collect wine, but as they were pumping wine into the truck, the man noticed that they had attached a second hose. Investigating further, he found that they were pumping water into the truck as well. Enraged, the man refused to take the wine and approached the Austrian wine control, who told him that they would be unable to begin inquiries for another 6 weeks due to the massive amount of work they already had to perform. Finding this answer unacceptable, he then approached the Ministry of Agriculture, who revealed to him that there were only 18 inspectors tasked with overseeing approximately 60,000 companies. With such a state of affairs, there was little question that adulteration of wine, especially Predikatswein, had become widespread. In 1975, the Chamber of Labor and Employees in Salzburg, Austria, performed both chemical tests and expert taste tests on 76 different bottles of Austrian wine. Of them, only 23 were properly labeled and 56 were defective. But what investigators couldn't have known was precisely how large the problem had grown, or how far winemakers would go to make a profit. On December 21st, 1984, an unknown man with a German accent entered the Federal Institute of Agricultural Chemistry in Vienna and placed a bottle full of liquid on the table, declaring that inside of this bottle was the chemical being used to produce such vast quantities of wine. He then exited the building, leaving the bottle on the table. He was never identified. After a month of analysis, chemists were able to determine that the bottle contained numerous chemicals, several of them toxic. Though this tip wasn't enough to investigate any winery in particular, it meant that they knew what tests to apply if given the opportunity, and this would come less than 2 months later. In mid-February of 1985, another tip was sent from someone inside the Austrian wine industry to government officials, a tip that seemed too ridiculous and brazen to be believed. A factory owner was purchasing large amounts of a chemical, one of the chemicals from the mysterious bottle, and attempting to write it off on his taxes as a business expense, claiming that it was all to be used for his small tractor. After inspecting the documents, this blatant discrepancy proved enough to obtain a warrant, and a chemical investigation team was sent. Upon their arrival, they confiscated the wine being stored in the vats and sent samples back to a laboratory. Soon, their suspicions were confirmed. The wine contained significant amounts of diethylene glycol. Diethylene glycol is typically used as a solvent or combined with other chemicals to make numerous liquids such as brake fluid and wallpaper stripper. Its effect on humans, however, is brutal. After ingestion, diethylene glycol enters the bloodstream, where it is transported throughout the body and takes destructive effect in 2 particular ways. The first, and better understood, is its interaction with the liver and the kidneys. When diethylene glycol enters the liver, it is metabolized into 2 new chemicals, 2-hydroxyethoxyacetic acid and diglycolic acid. When the latter of these encounters the tubules of the kidneys, it enters the cells and damages the mitochondria, causing necrosis, or literally, cell death. If enough of the kidney is damaged, it can no longer adequately filter toxins out of the blood, a condition called renal failure. This eventually leads to metabolic acidosis, where the blood becomes too acidic for the body to use. The second and more poorly understood effect is that on the nervous system. Through mechanisms apparently still unknown, ingestion of diethylene glycol causes damage to the myelin sheath and axon of nerve cells, making them unable to properly carry electrical signals. Unchecked, this can lead to permanent paralysis, either partial or complete. Studies of people affected by diethylene glycol showed that nearly every single neuron was damaged by the poisoning to some degree. Though the amounts found in this wine were small enough not to cause acute poisoning, long-term consumption can cause the same effects and lead to organ and brain damage. While adding diethylene glycol to wine was unorthodox, the reasons for doing so were easy to glean. Wines with added sugar were worth less, and tests were often performed to make certain that no additives were being used without proper labeling. This meant that, to sweeten wine without reducing profits, another chemical would have to be used, one that was more difficult to detect. Diethylene glycol was poorly understood at the time, the tests for it were rudimentary, and most importantly, it was sweet. In small enough amounts, the effects of poisoning could be minimized while adding a noticeable amount of sweetness, body, and aroma, and if someone did suffer the effects of poisoning, it would be difficult to trace the source back to the wine. By this method, wine cellars could enhance lower quality wine to mimic Pré de Cotswine. At the time, the chemical investigation team assumed that this was an isolated incident, limited to cheap, mass-produced wine, but as the weeks progressed, this optimistic assumption proved drastically incorrect. With this wine confiscated, investigators began searching for more wineries who may have performed similar adulteration, but as they did, a parallel incident began occurring across Austria. The bacterial colonies used in sewage treatment facilities were suddenly and inexplicably collapsing, and untreated sewage was flowing into the rivers and devastating their ecosystems. It didn't take long to discover what was causing this. Despite attempts at secrecy, knowledge of the investigations had leaked to the wine industry, and now, other wineries who had been sweetening their wine were desperately dumping it into the sewer to hide it from the investigators. However, the diethylene glycol in the wine had the effect of killing the bacterial colonies in the water treatment plants, and thereby unintentionally broadcasting their actions. Investigators were forced to scramble in order to find these wineries before they could destroy their tainted wine. After raiding a few cellars from winemakers in Burgenland, they quickly discovered that it wasn't only the cheap wine that had been affected. Both cheap and expensive winemakers were adding diethylene glycol to their wines in order to sweeten it. By this point, it was apparent that secrecy was no longer possible. On April 23, 1985, the Austrian government announced the discovery to the public and issued a health warning against Pré de Cotswine. 2 days later, approximately 2 million liters of wine were confiscated to await laboratory testing. However, it would take some time for the laboratories, with their limited resources, to finish their tests. Over the following months, these tests would reveal just how deeply this poisoning had rooted itself in the Austrian wine industry, and how it had been exacerbated by ignorant bodies secretly performing their own actions independently. While there was little news over the next few months, those chemists tasked with testing the wine were understaffed, overworked, and woefully disorganized. In some instances, a single sample of wine was tested 100 times due to poor communication, and the number of samples had ballooned so quickly that testing all of the wine became impossible with contemporary methods, with or without proper organization. These chemists also realized that, since the government had announced their investigation, the poisoners now had the opportunity to hide their work by diluting the affected wine before it could be confiscated. And so, the chemists settled on a different plan. They would develop new methods of testing. After only 3 months of dedicated work, they were able to increase the sensitivity of the tests by 4,000%, so that 5 milligrams of diethylene glycol could be detected in 1 liter of wine. But perhaps more importantly, these tests could be completed in as little as 5 minutes, making the task of testing much more expedient. Over time, more people in the wine industry were implicated, and their wines were placed on a blacklist. With the revelation of this poisoning, doctors were finally linking illnesses to Austrian wine consumption. On July 11th, multiple cases were reported in the newspapers. One was of a 36-year-old man who had bought 50 bottles of Pré de Cotswine to fill his cellar and decided to drink some of it. That same night, he began suffering from stomach cramps and his body began shaking. Another man drank a bottle of Pré de Cotswine over the course of a number of evenings, until eventually he started vomiting and suffering from kidney stones. The following day, July 12th, a report was released about a family who had gathered for their 77-year-old grandmother's birthday party, and the 11 adults all shared bottles of Pré de Cotswine. By the next day, each of them was feeling nauseated and dizzy. Another case emerged later that month, which was far more dire. 4 years before the tests for diethylene glycol began, a retired German man had been on vacation near Vienna, where he drank large amounts of sweet wine, then bought another several liters to take back home with him to Munich. During his return journey, however, he began suffering from severe kidney pain and nausea, for which he was admitted to the hospital. There, his condition worsened until finally his liver failed completely. The doctors were able to deduce the cause of his illness: glycol poisoning, which had come from the large amount of wine he had ingested. The newspapers initially reported him as the first confirmed death of the poisoning, but this was refuted a few days later when the man provided an interview to a competing newspaper, in which he dryly noted, "I am fine now," and recounted his poisoning from 4 years prior. This last report revealed a concerning fact. At first, it was believed that the usage of diethylene glycol was much smaller in scope. This event showed that wineries have been adding the chemical to their wines for over 5 years, and as laboratories continued testing, this scope only widened. The oldest bottle discovered with the chemical was bottled in 1976, meaning that this had been occurring for nearly a decade at the least. Then, on July 19th, it was revealed that a single bottle of ice wine contained 16 grams of diethylene glycol in it, enough to sicken an adult and kill someone susceptible to it. That same day, advertisements appeared in numerous newspapers internationally, purchased by the Austrian Wine Propaganda Office, who were desperate to salvage what public goodwill they could. Fritz Hallgarten, in his book Wine Scandal, translates it so: "No pardon against the black sheep of Austrian viticulture. Criminal investigations have been initiated. Already on April 23, 1985, the authorities took all precautions. All wines found to be adulterated were confiscated. Official report of the Austrian Wine Control. 52,790 Austrian growers, 1,582 Austrian wine merchants, and 52 viticultural cooperatives produce wine under the strictest official control of quality." These statements, however, were obviously hollow to the public, who had grown wary of Austrian wine as new batches were found to include diethylene glycol, and the blacklist continued to grow. As if to rebut the propaganda office, another bottle of wine was found to contain 45 grams of diethylene glycol per liter, almost 3 times as much as the ice wine, only 6 days after they released their advertisement. By the end of July, over 5 million liters of Austrian wine had been confiscated. However, German wine resellers didn't want to lose profits on their imports, and so they silently re-exported their Austrian wine to other countries who were still uninformed about the poisoning. Soon afterward, these countries placed similar bans, but only after numerous drinkers began to show symptoms of paralysis after drinking Austrian wine. In an odd quirk of linguistic barriers, Japan and China also ordered a ban on the sale of Australian wine, due to the similarity of the countries' names. In the course of testing this wine, numerous other scandals were inadvertently discovered, such as the fact that much of the wine market wasn't wine at all, but a special concoction named Kunstwein, which tastes remarkably similar to actual wine, yet contains no grapes. Supposedly, one company was making 100,000 liters of it every month. Around 1980, Kunstwein makers had begun adding diethylene glycol as well. But other scandals were of much more dire consequence, and one explained the devastating effects that some people were experiencing from the glycol. One of the known treatments for diethylene glycol poisoning is ethanol, better known as the alcohol normally found in drinks. Ethanol reacts with the same liver enzymes as diethylene glycol, and if the enzymes are occupied by the ethanol, then the glycol can pass through the liver without being transformed into the toxic diglycolic acid, whereafter it is safely expelled from the body. This meant that, ideally, the ethanol in the wine would help counteract the toxicity of the diethylene glycol, and likely did in many cases. However, the laboratories discovered that some wineries were adding more substances alongside the glycol, most prominently, sugar. Sugar has the opposite effect as ethanol, instead increasing the toxicity of the diethylene glycol and working against whatever safety the ethanol may have provided. As this was being discovered, another newfound scandal was taking place in Germany. After diethylene glycol was found in wines that had been exported, Austrian winemakers claimed that German wine distributors were the ones who must have added the chemical after importing it, despite the clear evidence to the contrary. To refute these claims, the German government tested German wines, surmising that if this adulteration was being performed by these companies, it was unlikely that they would limit it to only Austrian wines. During testing, however, something odd was discovered. Some bottles showed small amounts of diethylene glycol, much smaller than what was in Austrian wines. At first, these German wine distributors suggested that diethylene glycol could occur naturally during fermentation, or perhaps in the pesticides used on the grapes. Chemists quickly refuted these possibilities. Then they attempted to blame the Austrian wines for contaminating their tanks, but these lies were thin. Such contamination would only result in trace amounts of diethylene glycol, not the 20 to 30 milligrams that were appearing in these bottles. The reason was simple and was admitted by multiple sellers. They had secretly been mixing their German wines with Austrian wines to enhance the flavor. In the meantime, the German government blocked 10 billion liters of wine from entering the country any further. But another revelation was perhaps more concerning. Toward the end of July, it was discovered that diethylene glycol had been intentionally added to grape juice at a concentration of 1 gram per liter. While this was less than what was typically found in the affected wines, much less diethylene glycol is required to sicken children, and even if this amount wasn't enough to cause acute poisoning, ingestion over long periods of time could still cause organ and neurological damage, especially without the mitigating effects of ethanol. With vast amounts of information being revealed to the public in such a short time, the media began focusing on this wine adulteration more and more, and affected wine was given a name, antifreeze wine, after reporters somewhat inaccurately stated that the chemical being used was antifreeze. While diethylene glycol is used as such in rare cases, other chemicals are far more common for the purpose. Despite this, the name antifreeze wine became the common term. By this point, the scandal had become a major cultural event, and a polka was even created in its honor, Zum Wohl Glycol, or in English, Cheers to Glycol. With the public enraged, they began to demand answers to 3 questions in particular. How was the government involved? How had this happened in the first place? And why? Reporters began investigating how long the government had known about this adulteration, and they noticed a discrepancy. On May 10th, the Austrian government alerted German officials that contaminated wine had been exported to their country. However, while the German government warned about drinking wine in Austria, the public wasn't informed that wine for sale in Germany had been affected, meaning that German citizens were still unwittingly buying wine with diethylene glycol. What wasn't reported was that, on May 30th, the German wine investigators were ordered to stop taking samples, suggesting that somebody in the upper echelons of the German government wanted this poisoning kept a secret. It wasn't until July 9th, almost a month and a half later, that a warning was given to the public. The reason for these strange occurrences was soon discovered. As opposed to contacting the German federal state, the Austrian investigators informed the Ministry of Viticulture in Mainz, whose chief concern was the well-being of the importers rather than public health. Hoping to salvage the wine, they kept this information secret and sought counsel to discover how much diethylene glycol would be hazardous to a person's health, and planned to approach the Minister of the Federal State for permission to issue new licenses that would allow the sale of antifreeze wine. Their plan was to discover the maximum safe amount of the chemical and allow winemakers to mix the affected wine with clean wine to reach this predetermined limit. When this was discovered, the public outcry was massive, and many demanded the resignation of those attempting to allow the sale of the antifreeze wine. 1 month after this revelation, one of the 3 people involved resigned, and the other 2 were transferred to other ministries. But investigators had a more pressing concern: the discovery of how this had happened. The first step was determining likely perpetrators. Using diethylene glycol as an additive seemed almost insidiously genius. Not only did it enhance the flavor profile of the wine in profound ways, but it was also incredibly cheap and could be bought in bulk. What's more, detection had been difficult and time-consuming before the chemist's improvements, making it unlikely to be discovered, especially with the Austrian wine control so overwhelmed. The investigators reasoned that whoever had first conceived of this likely had some sort of background in chemistry. Working off of this assumption, they discovered their prime suspect, a man named Otto Nadrasky. Nadrasky had spent time as a chemist and had later gone on to become a wine consultant for numerous large wine companies. He was promptly arrested, alongside dozens of others. Though many of these people had to be let go due to a lack of evidence, enough were detained that, as court hearings proceeded, the greater reasoning behind the scandal was made clear. During the 1970s, the climate of Austria was changing. Rain had become more frequent and temperatures were gradually rising, which had an effect on the grapes. As mentioned before, farmers wanted to leave grapes on the vine for as long as possible so that they could ripen and sweeten, but the extra rain was making the grapes plump up and fall off of the vine long before the end of the season, resulting in crops that were significantly more sour. In spite of this, production companies still had orders to fill. Many exporters had signed contracts with German importers for large quantities of sweet wine. A solution would have to be found, and so Otto Nadrasky got to work. As a chemist, he had stumbled upon the idea of using diethylene glycol as an additive, and so he experimented to find the correct balance so that the taste could be enhanced while avoiding detection. To aid this endeavor, he also added other chemicals that helped hide its presence and further enhance the taste of the wine. What's more, he discovered that diethylene glycol could hide the presence of added water, which would allow companies to dilute the wine and further increase their yield. Once he had ascertained the proper mixture, he handed the formula to the companies for whom he worked. From there, they sold their secret to other companies, and over the years, more and more wine producers began using this idea until approximately 15% of all Austrian wines had some amount of diethylene glycol in it. Some companies tweaked the formula to add even more glycol. This flippant usage of the chemical may have been due to a misunderstanding. While mass poisonings had occurred in other countries before, the toxicity of diethylene glycol was poorly understood, and in court, multiple wine merchants professed that they had researched diethylene glycol before using it and found no literature to suggest that it was poisonous. Therefore, they felt morally confident adding it to their wine, despite the inherent duplicity. When inspectors learned of this trick, producers frantically tried to hide their affected wine. The federal government had stated the names of the two companies that had initially been discovered using glycol, which gave their suppliers time to hide or destroy their wine. Some, as mentioned previously, had dumped theirs into the sewer, but when this only broadcast their usage to the authorities, others realized that something else would have to be done. Wineries began to run their own tests in order to discover whether the equipment could detect the amount of glycol that they were using, hiding the results in neighboring businesses in case they were raided. By their calculations, they would need to dilute the affected wine with 10 parts unaffected wine in order to avoid detection, but this immediately became a problem. None of the wineries had that much unadulterated wine, and there was no way for them to know what other companies had added glycol to their product. If they bought from another winery, they risked making their wines even more toxic and having even more antifreeze wine in their possession. In the end, this proved pointless as the chemists devised their new methods of detection and many of the culpable parties were arrested. Though court proceedings would take another 12 years, the scandal itself was finally over. But in the meantime, the rest of the wine industry was left to salvage what they could of their livelihoods. Even as countries lifted their bans on Austrian wine, consumer trust had been hopelessly destroyed. The government rushed new and stringent laws through legislation to ensure the safety of the wine and salvage the market, and one economist famously stated that everything would be resolved and forgotten in a year. His optimistic assessment was almost comically wrong. Within weeks of the media coverage, wine merchants were declaring bankruptcy. Even those companies who hadn't participated in the scandal were stigmatized, and Austrian wine was shunned internationally. Of note was that no wine growers had been implicated in the scandal, only fermenters and merchants, and yet many vineyards were forced to close permanently as the Austrian wine economy staggered and they could no longer sell their grapes, especially the lower quality ones. Those merchants who had participated, however, were indignant, and one defense lawyer blamed consumers for buying cheap wine without more careful consideration. These defenses proved ineffective, and many were given the maximum 10-year sentence. In the end, Austrian wine exports were down to less than 5% of where they had been only 1 year prior. Despite this, some of the companies at the center of the scandal managed to avoid bankruptcy. According to official records, nobody had been injured by the glycol, but this seems unlikely given the scope of the poisoning. In the meantime, the Austrian government was now left with the daunting task of destroying 270 million liters of contaminated wine, and their answer came from surprising sources: an electric power plant and a cement plant. In 1987, it was announced that technicians from the Österreichischen Traukraftwerke in Carinthia had devised a method for burning the wine to produce electricity. Similarly, a cement plant had retrofitted their furnaces to permit the use of wine as a coolant, and in this manner, all of the wine was gradually destroyed. With the poisoning concluded, the country set about rebuilding their industry. Winemakers began a campaign to resist the harsh new quality control laws enacted by the government, arguing that the scandal wasn't caused by weak laws, but rather by a lack of enforcement. After they couldn't come to an agreement with lawmakers, multiple irate farmers threw salads at Günther Hayden, the agriculture minister. Still, the wine laws held. While the export market had been annihilated, the domestic market had survived, with sales somewhere between 90 to 94% compared to the previous year. This may largely be credited to the dedicated buyers of particular wineries, as well as the still thriving tourism industry. With the image of sweet wine tainted, wineries focused on cultivating grapes to make dry white wines, while wineries worked on reviving old, traditional Austrian methods of production. Those winemakers who survived the scandal began taking even greater pride in their product, focusing on improving the quality as opposed to the quantity. This was encouraged by new wine colleges established across Austria with the express purpose of educating aspiring vintners. These colleges were tasked with educating and guiding a new generation of winemakers and merchants who embraced a wide variety of new ideas, adapting quickly to the changing tastes of consumers and enacting more sustainable growing practices, leading to the long-term positive health of wineries. For example, some new wine growers used a practice called Traubenausdünnung, where they would remove 50 to 70% of the grapes from the vine so that the remaining ones would receive more of the plant's nutrients and energy. While this resulted in less wine overall and was labor-intensive, the resulting product was of notably higher quality. The scandal had also encouraged consumers to be more conscious of their purchases, and they began to take a greater interest in both the production process and the quality of the wine they were drinking, which in turn demanded a greater knowledge from producers and merchants. With time, and with the new winery practices, drinkers began to buy wine in greater amounts once again. This was bolstered by the confidence instilled by the new, stringent government policies. Every new bottle would be tested for composition and quality, and would be marked as approved with an excise stamp that included an identification number and date of inspection. It would be 16 years before the export market reached the levels of profit they once had, but by the time they did, their reputation had been radically altered. Though the modern Austrian wine market is much smaller than those of other countries such as Italy and France, they are renowned for their quality, and they are instantly recognizable thanks to the newly designed, distinctive red-white-red excise stamp on top of every bottle that signifies it as approved for export by the federal government after both chemical tests and a taste test. Inadvertently, the stamps had become a marketing tool. Today, the wine scandal is seemingly forgotten, replaced by modern acknowledgement of the universally high Austrian quality and enforced by what are often agreed to be the strictest wine laws in the world. Some winemakers still grumble about the brash stupidity of the old wine merchants who added diethylene glycol to their wine, but all will agree that, if the poisoning had never happened, Austrian wine would be drastically different, and most seem thankful for the prosperity that the modern wine industry is enjoying, with no need for added glycol.
Hey.
My calculator is supposed to be able to do.
While interactions on Facebook
Nice.
don't often attract external attention, a wider audience will occasionally discover them,
That's
such
great.
as in the instance of the
I
Per
haven't
Cat
had one like that
Cafe.
yet.
Though the business itself
I have
was
not had
considered odd
one
due
like
to
that
its
yet.
practices, it was the owner and her aggressive social media presence that garnered most of the attention, and this eventually became so problematic for the fledgling business that local news stations began reporting on it. People online will still occasionally ask after the business, its cats, and its owner. So what is the Per Cat Cafe?
You want to see it?
There it is. Ooh. Wow.
It was like 129.
That's pretty decent.
In mid-August of 2017, a woman named Kathleen Krukzek made a public post to Facebook detailing her grievances with her former employer. Earlier that year, the company had opened an Indiegogo crowdfunding campaign asking for $40,000 so that they could open sometime soon after.
Hello, Boston. My name is Diane Kelly. I am a cat enthusiast and the founder of Per Cat Cafe. I have been working to bring Per Cat Cafe to life for 17 months now. Cat Cafe is a really fun place where rescue cats actually reside in the cafe, in which people come and play with the cats. And best of all the cats at the cafe are adoptable.
Come meet the coolest cats in town at Per.
Though they only managed to raise $7,200, their flexible funding goal meant that they still received this money in full, but it also meant that they had taken on an obligation to their 162 backers. By the time Kathleen had made her post to speak out against Diane Kelly, the business was approaching 3 months past their scheduled opening date of June 1st. This post read in part, quote, "Hi everyone, Kat Grace, former general manager of Per Cat Cafe here. If you've emailed Boston Per in the last few months, chances are high that you spoke to me directly. I'm sure this post will get deleted, so feel free to copy-paste or screenshot." Most of the core team has distanced themselves from Per for several reasons. Everything she is being bullied for, we have told her over and over again. This team consisted of 2 feline behaviorists, myself included, and several people who have worked hands-on in rescue for about as long as I have been alive. Despite our combined experience, Diane chose to continually ignore and insult us. Diane has no animal care background whatsoever.
Wow.
Kathleen went on to explain the reasons behind many of the cafe's troubles. At one point, Diane had reached an agreement with a local shelter named Boston's Forgotten Felines, or BFF, a charity that picks up stray cats, fixes them, gives them medical treatment, and then adopts them out. According to their deal, BFF would provide cats to Diane's cat cafe, and visitors could adopt the cats through the charity, since the cafe wasn't licensed properly to do so. Not long before Kathleen's post, however, the two had canceled their partnership, and Kathleen explained why. Quote, "Diane will claim up and down she is being bullied and that the reason for dissolving the partnership with BFF was because they were not supplying cats. The truth is, she was not equipped to have any cats in the building, despite her certificate of occupancy, which has nothing to do with animal welfare. No beds, blankets, or pillows, no hiding places, no cages, hardly any toys, no cat trees, no scratchers, nothing. Anything you see for the cats, including 95% of the toys, was either purchased by me out of my own pocket, was a loan from BFF, or is the perches on the upstairs walls donated by Aristocat Designs. Diane contributed absolutely nothing, save a small handful of toys, some random bowls, and some cages bought far too late, once she was pressured to do so. She spent the dwindling money left in the Per accounts on decorative wall art, coloring books, and things to entertain people, etc., instead of things for the 2 cats we now had. Diane wanted to place the cats, with no enrichment, in a basement with no windows and cold, hard floors. BFF did not want to place cats until Per was equipped to do so. Diane told BFF to fuck off several times. Diane said any other shelter would be happy to place cats in her poorly equipped basement. We all said 1,000 times that no one who gives a hoot about animal welfare would ever do so. Diane doesn't know the first thing about feline welfare, and that would be fine, had she listened to the team she had. Now she stands alone with all of the decisions she has made and will not take responsibility for any of them. After another feline behaviorist very politely told her all of the things she would need to furnish the space, Diane told her to never contact her again. She doesn't even care enough to remember which cat is which. Amber is labeled as Godric in some of these photos. To top it off, these cats aren't even at Purr anymore, yet she continues to use their photos. I suspect that is to hide the fact that she still has no cats. Everything you could ever think of from a feline welfare perspective, we told her. From getting a Munchkin cat to just buying cat toys, she ignored most of it. She is more concerned with making everything look nice and making profits than actually taking care of these cats. She takes actual advice as bullying. Diane offered me part ownership of Purr Cat Cafe, and I chose to walk away from it completely instead. I hope you all understand how serious that is. She forwarded me an email with intentions to lie about BFF, and I immediately resigned. If Purr opens its doors, Diane has also told the agricultural department to fuck off, so I suspect it won't be open long. She thinks the animal welfare laws do not apply to her because of her designation as a pet center. End quote. Accurate to Kathleen's assessment of her personality, Diane replied to this post using the official Purr Cat Cafe Facebook page, saying, quote, "Oh, I am very certain I have put feline care at the top of my list. I will continue my mission to rescue cats in Boston and get them adopted. The both of you can continue to tell me how I should run Purr for the cat's best welfare. Go right ahead, post whatever you want. But the reality and the truth about Purr Cat Cafe is going to be alive and well soon. So, sick of the cat fights in Boston. I am learning that people in the cat world truly might be crazy. I am starting to understand why people call females crazy cat ladies. People that work in the cat field are crazy cat people. I am a cat enthusiast and a very smart businesswoman. So Boston, if you like cats, you will know where to find them in Boston shortly. If you want to listen to some women rant and rave about crap, you should contact Kat and Joan." End quote. In response to another person expressing her concerns, Diane also spoke to the failed partnership with BFF, saying, "Unfortunately, BFF was not dependable to provide cats for Purr." But Kathleen wasn't finished speaking about the business. On August 26th, she posted a photograph that she took of the mostly bare basement in the Purr Cat Cafe, saying, quote, "These are the conditions that Diane of Purr Cat Cafe thinks are sufficient for a large number of cats to live in. This photo was taken the day Purr got its first 3 cats, Amber, Godric, and Pearl. Diane told BFF that the space was all set, and when they walked in, they were appalled. Does this look like a good place for a cat to live to you? No windows, no beds or toys or perches or hiding places. Cats could crawl behind the stairs through a gigantic hole by the water heater. She can delete my posts all she wants, but her team is dropping like flies because of her behavior, and the public deserves to know the truth." In the replies, she went on to explain that Diane's plan was to rotate 2 sets of cats between the storefront and the basement to give them breaks from visitors. She also went on to explain Diane's aversion to her advice. Quote, "There were issues like me saying we shouldn't be feeding animals on styrofoam plates due to the risk of intestinal blockages, where she told me, 'You will not change my mind on this.' She thinks only she can decide what is best for the animals she has no idea how to care for and will not budge on any of it." Kathleen was joined by the director for BFF, Joni Nelson, who confirmed what she was sharing and added minor details. While all of this garnered significant backlash against the cafe, the greatest damage would come from a surprising place, Diane herself. Diane responded to Kathleen's indictments vitriolically. When one person stated that she no longer had any intention to visit the cafe, Diane used the official business account to post a reply, saying, "Why are you being such a bitch?" On August 28th, 2 days after Kathleen posted her photograph of the basement, Diane made a post to Purr Cat Cafe's official Facebook page, posing as one of her cats, Gussie. In this post, she reiterated the cafe's mission statement, vision statement, and oath, all centered around the well-being of the cats that would eventually be housed in the building, if she could secure a partnership. She closed the post with her familiar tagline, "Meow, meow, Purr. One of the replies plied Diane for answers to those questions raised by the people watching the Facebook page, saying, quote, "Can you clarify how your actions, such as breaking with BFF, planning to place cats in an empty basement with no enrichment, deleting posts with legitimate questions in the comments, align with this oath/mission statement?" Diane replied with, "Certainly, please call me and I would be more than happy to answer any concerns that you may have. I am working hard to open Purr as I have been doing for the last 2 years of my life. I would prefer to be working on opening Purr to save abandoned cats rather than to respond to negative and incorrect comments about Purr. It is not a productive use of my time. It would be much better for me to stay focused on my mission to open Purr. I look forward to your phone call. Sincerely, Diane." Soon, Kathleen challenged Diane directly on the page, saying, "How about you just answer everyone publicly? Why do you keep deleting legitimate concerns posted by your confused and worried supporters?" Diane deflected, saying, "Certainly, Kat, I can do that. Contact the media and line up an interview for me." To which Kathleen rebutted, "Hey, you're in luck. You're on social media. No appointment needed. Speak to the masses whenever you're ready." This challenge received no reply. Soon, people began gathering around this Facebook page, and where there had once only been a few comments on any given post, there were suddenly dozens of commenters bombarding
their
Diane with
approach.
criticism and comments.
You make me
These
wait
new
too
people
long.
were divided into 2 main groups with some overlap. The first were those concerned about the welfare of the cats and Diane's ability to open and maintain the business.
But we do not
Many
need
agreed that a
or
cat
want your
cafe of this nature could positively
Now,
affect the community
go
and
back
the
to your
welfare of its
coast
cat
town,
population.
Ojel.
The second
The
group found
swamp will
sport in
eat you if you
antagonizing
do not.
Diane, remarking on her hypocrisy,
No.
confrontational and aggressive attitude, and poor business acumen.
So,
this
it
latter
is
group
true.
was usually
The
tolerated by
blackguards
the
take
former,
hostages
if only
from the
because it
Deadwater
helped them in
tribe as
their
well.
goal of holding
As I
Diane
said,
accountable.
Jaxic is
Diane
very
began
proud,
posting more
but she would be a
frequently,
valuable
often attempting
ally
to
if we could
refute her
convince her to
critics,
let us
but
help.
these acted as
Too bad
little
she
more
runs
than
away,
news
yes?
faces for people
At least
to
we have
confront
a
her.
lead.
In a post on September
Yes,
3rd, she
she
stated
said she
that
was
she would
hunting
be
a
at the
blackguard
storefront
even
that
now,
afternoon
right?
and the
Did
following
you see how her
afternoon
throat
to
fin
answer
spread?
anyone's concerns
How
in
her
person,
pupils
but
dilated
when multiple
and her
people
tail
went to
stiffened
meet
as
with
she
her
turned to leave?
independently, they couldn't
Her
find
prey
her.
is very,
By
very
this point,
close.
Diane's
We
Facebook
only need to
issues
follow
had drawn
her.
the attention of local newspapers.
We hunt the
and on
hunter.
September 5th,
Scan
an
the
article
swamp
was
for the
published
bent
in Boston
reeds and broken
Magazine
fronds
titled
she leaves in
"Boston's
her
Purr
wake.
Cat Cafe
The
hasn't
trail should
opened
eventually
yet."
lead us
This
to
piece
friend
focuses
Jaxic
largely
and the
on
blackguard
Diane's
she
failure
hunts.
to partner with
Simple,
Boston's
I think.
forgotten felines and quotes Diane
Cool.
herself.
Crouch
the week
down,
that BFF
Beagle.
was supposed
Look
to
for
bring
bent
cats to
stalks,
Purr did
torn
not go
leaves,
very
or muddy
well at
prints.
all. They told
Should
me I
be
didn't have
easy.
enough stuff.
Jaxic
I ordered
Orn
that
rarely
day more
sneaks around
pages,
danger.
which came 2
She
days
goes through
later.
it,
But
always.
BFF didn't come back Wednesday or by the end of the week. I made my decision. I'm definitely not partnering with BFF. People are making accusations that I don't love animals and I don't know what I'm doing, but I have done my homework. Purr is a conduit to help cats get adopted. The adoption process will be with whatever partner I choose to partner with. End quote. This article also mentioned what it called drama on the Facebook page, including Kathleen's photograph of the bare-looking basement and the confirmation of this evidence by one of BFF's volunteers. The author provided links to the posts in question, drawing even more onlookers and commenters. Soon after this, on September 8th, Diane revealed that she was in talks with another shelter and stated that she had rescued another cat named Polka Dots. However, by performing a Google image search, 2 commenters discovered that the photograph Diane had provided was actually from 2011, uploaded by a shelter in Arizona. With critical and concerned people now scrutinizing Diane so closely, someone posted to the cafe's Facebook page in Diane's stead on September 10th. The post was worded with diplomatic but imprecise rhetoric, with phrases such as, "We hope to start anew and take a step in the right direction, acknowledging where we have been and hoping to move forward." Shortly after this statement was published, many of Diane's posts from the previous months were expunged from Facebook, as for the comments left on them. This post, while omitting any sort of apology, was received far more positively than anything posted to the page for some time, and the replies were almost universally supportive. But this shift towards civility would not last. On September 24th, 16 days after the previous message attempting to make amends with the community, Diane once again took control of the company's Facebook page, posing as her pet cat. It reads in part, quote, "Good evening, Boston. Kingpin Gussie here, the very proud cat adopted by Diane Kellily." Diane Kelly loves cats, and that is why she adopted me from Little Lions Cat Cafe. There are a tremendous amount of people in this world that would rather focus on hate. This has been very obvious on my Facebook. Apparently, Boston's Forgotten Felines would rather focus on hate rather than the truth. So, I will focus on the truth, Boston. Boston's Forgotten Felines was not a registered shelter in the state of Massachusetts. Patricia Cabral, the director of all of Shelter and Rescue, phoned me to notify me that Boston's Forgotten Felines was not registered in the state of Massachusetts. I communicated this to Joni Nelson, the director of BFF. 2 months later, BFF was still not registered with that state of Massachusetts. Consequently, I made a sound business decision not to partner with BFF. Would you partner your business with a rescue group that was not registered in the state of Massachusetts? End quote. Within 2 hours, this was rebutted by a commenter who linked to an official government website listing approved shelter and rescue organizations, and on that list was Boston's Forgotten Felines. One person who worked for the shelter commented on the post as well to defend her organization, and numerous others accused Diane of libel. 2 days later, she responded to this criticism by again role-playing as her cat, Gussie. Quote, "Meow Boston. Gussie here, the kingpin of purr. I represent Diane Kelly, the very proud owner of Boston's first cat cafe. Diane is cat-tastic. She adopted me from Little Lions Cat Cafe in New York City. Diane has been the most wonderful mom I could ever have. She loves me to death and gives me the very best of
Following
care.
a dead water
Diane
call
is
is
opening
the act
her
of a
cat
fool or a
cafe to
maniac.
rescue abandoned
So
cats.
Jay says
My
fools
mom
and
has been
maniacs
working on
both
opening
bleed
her
red.
cat cafe for 2 years.
I will
She has
repeat
worked
myself.
diligently every day
The
for 2
O-gel
years to
stands its
open her
ground.
cat cafe.
I narrow
There
my
has been a
eyes.
tremendous amount of inaccurate
You and the
statements
bright
posted
throat
to
wish
Purr's
to join
social
me on
media.
this raid
I
rather
have
than pick
captured
the
every
bones
post
when the
for my mom,
Finally,
Diane.
you speak
I will be consulting
So
with
it's a
my
fight?
mother's attorney tomorrow.
I fight best
Meow.
in the shadows, Biku.
Meow.
I leave the
Purr.
direct approach to
In
you.
response to a comment attacking her, she wrote, "Dear Ryan, her cat cafe is being harassed. Her cat cafe is not even opened. How could anyone rate Purr at getting cats adopted? Yes, it is more than disheartening. It is not the difficult to see. Purr is not opened yet. Purr had a 5-star rating. Purr walked away from Boston's Forgotten Felines because they were not reliable. Yes, BFF, Boston, was not reliable to bring cats to Purr." But only 2 days later, Diane would escalate this further in a way that nobody predicted. On September 26th, Diane posted a picture of people in front of a banner with the cafe's logo on it, writing, "Purr is a collective team. Our goal is to save abandoned cats and find them forever homes. However, Purr is also an organization that will fight against individuals that try to deface Purr Cat Cafe. Meow. Meow. Purr." Kathleen, returning to the page, left a comment on this post. Quote, "Just to clarify, this photo is from First Catterday at Boston Common on August 6th, 2017. Half of the individuals in this photo were not part of the Purr team, only people we spoke to and pulled into the photo with us. In regards to the team, to my knowledge, at least 2 individuals are no longer associated with Purr, and I am the short gal in black pants standing behind Diane. Not sure what the purpose of posting this image was, but I don't want to be associated with this business any further. Please remove my photo." Diane responded within the hour. "Dear Cat, just to be clear, you did participate at First Catterday to represent Purr, did you or not? Additionally, I know you enjoy having several different sexual partners. You shared that with me, and I have no interest at all having a woman that works for me that has several different sexual partners. You sharing with me that you have several different sexual partners is inappropriate." Immediately, a flood of comments filled the post, admonishing Diane, and many people who claimed to be interested in the cafe expressed that they would not visit when it opened. Kathleen responded, saying, "We had a conversation about how you'd be meeting my boyfriend, not my sex life in any aspect. For anyone confused, I am openly polyamorous, meaning I have 2 boyfriends. I never spoke about anything sexual. You are out of control, Diane. My personal life has nothing to do with your business." In that same comment thread, Kathleen noted that she had just received 2 messages from cafe employees informing her of their departure from the company due to Diane's behavior. She made another comment later that read, "One of my many sexual partners worked on your frickin' header image and Indiegogo graphics, so looks like you didn't give a shit when it benefited you."
Please
What's
get us
more,
out of
this
here.
attack from Diane
Run, you
encouraged
muglings.
Kathleen to
The
post
Dada's
more
done with this
previously
place.
withheld details
So,
about the business
these
and their
dry skins are
correspondence.
good for
That
something,
same day,
after all.
she shared an image taken from a live feed of the basement earlier that month, showing that Diane had failed to fulfill her promises about the space. She closed the comment by saying, "I'm done playing nice." She then posted screenshots of emails between herself and Diane, depicting a bizarre exchange. Shortly before Kathleen left the staff of the Per Cat Cafe, she received an email from Diane that read, quote, "Kathleen, it just so happens that we have no cats at Per. Therefore, I see no need for you to work at Per. There is no reason to have any staff at Per. We have no cats. Diane Kelly." Kathleen responded, "Okay, I'm assuming you're firing me right now, so I'll pick up my last check on Monday. Have a good night, Cat Grace." Diane responded the next morning, saying, "No, I was being facetious. We have no cats, Kathleen. We are opening a cat cafe. There is a bit of a disconnect here. If you no longer want to work at Per, then please let me know. Thank you, Diane." Kathleen's reply reflected her mounting stress working under Diane. Part of her response reads, "I am not happy about this, Diane. I am trying to be professional, but it's difficult when it's not being reciprocated. I'm being called names, I am unsure if I have a job in the middle of the night, and you lose your temper with me on the phone when I express my professional opinions. If you continue to treat me in this manner, and others in a far worse manner, so much so that they stop working with you altogether, we will not be a successful business. If you cannot make this commitment to your employees, then you will no longer have employees. A workplace cannot function the way it is currently functioning. I should be stressing about getting our doors open, not about what name I'm going to be called over a miscommunication, or if I even have my job, or if I can even express my concerns about the business I'm supposed to be managing." End quote. Immediately after this, the phrase, "We have no cats, Kathleen," became a commonly repeated phrase in the comments, used to tease Diane. Perhaps most damning was an email Kathleen revealed from Diane discussing the partnership with Boston's Forgotten Felines. Quote, "We discussed Joni and BFF bringing a guaranteed 15 cats to Per by September 3rd. Kathleen, BFF and Per have been in a partnership for over a year now. Yet, BFF can't deliver any cats to Per. Kathleen, you have worked with Per for 6 weeks now and you are telling me to be patient? I have been working on Per since December 10th of 2015. How arrogant of you to tell me to be patient? BFF can't bring any cats to Per. That is obvious. Please let Joni know that Per does not want to do business with BFF." End quote. The same day, the official cafe account made a post with more diplomatic rhetoric, but it lacked any of the hallmarks of Diane's writing, making it likely that someone else had written it for her. The next day, Diane privated the cafe's Facebook page. With employees leaving and an enraged follower base, the future of the business was looking more doubtful than ever, but Diane's determination would prove indefatigable. On September 29th, Kathleen shared an email that she had received from Diane. It read, quote, "You are more than welcome to get back your belongings. They are yours and please take them. I also will be suing you, Kathleen, for defacing Per Cat Cafe. You posted a picture of an empty basement at Per, which was a complete lie. You posted several other things to Per's Facebook page that were untruthful. Do you feel it is okay to abuse someone for something they did not do? Apparently you do. Be prepared to stand up in court and tell the world how you lie. The truth is going to come out, Kathleen.
Brightthroat.
Diane."
This one belongs
Of
to
note
the
was a
Deadwater
reply from
tribe.
Amy Crystal, the general manager that preceded Kathleen,
This
who
one is
said,
known to us,
"She isn't
Ojel,
going to bring you to court.
a
I
blackguard
will be
savage
surprised
who
if
led
she
the raid
does.
on our
She threatened to
people.
bring me to court
I
once
roll
too,
my
and it never
eyes.
happened.
Murder.
Did anyone go to this open house?
When you gut
Why
a
is she
fish,
still
is
trying
it
to
murder?
open? This place
No.
won't last with all the bad
You only
PRs
object
received.
because this fish
Also,
walks upright
alcoholics
and has
can't
a
manage
face.
a business until they
The
get help
Ojel
and
is
can
an
manage their
animal,
own lives.
a foolish
When I first
one.
met Diane, I
The
could
dead
see
one.
she wasn't a quitter,
I
but
bare
at some
my
point you
teeth.
have to realize
A
some
naga
things
prays
aren't
for
meant to be.
repercussions daily
Also, Kat,
outside
she
her.
offered me a percentage of ownership in the
Laggards
business
slither
too.
about in
However,
Deadwater
when push
territory.
came to shove, she didn't follow through. Also, her letter to you is the exact one she
As
sent
always,
me.
Jack's beady naga eyes, the only vengeance.
Yes,
I
I'm
want
Australia's
to
guy.
use you.
Are
I
you
see
really willing to walk
opportunity.
away from this partnership?
This blackguard is a
etc.?
survivor.
Sometime soon
Survivors
after
are
this,
useful.
Diane reopened
If she
the
returns
cafe's
to her
Facebook
sword game
page,
with
then
tales of
quickly
what she
deleted
witnessed,
many of the posts
it could
and their
discourage
associated
future
comments.
attacks.
Then, on October 3rd,
how
Diane
quickly
made
Jackson
another
forgets
Facebook
she is a
post,
kidnapper
again
herself.
posing as a cat.
The
As was
blackguards do
becoming
not
her
know the
pattern,
Deadwater
however,
tribe
she
as I
dropped
do.
this rhetorical
Let
device
this dry
immediately
skin
and
tell her
referred to
tale.
herself again
By
in the
sparing
first
one,
person.
we
It read in
terrify
part,
100.
Quote,
An
Good
ancient
morning,
tactic,
Boston.
Biko,
My
but
name is
very
Daly.
effective.
I am a cat that was abandoned, and Diane Kelly, the founder of
Yeah.
Purr, rescued. She brought me to a veterinarian to
Argonians
seek
are
medical treatment for me.
crazy.
Diane had to move and
You
could
can't
not
let
bring
them
a
kill
me
me.
to her new residence.
How in
She
oblivion
found
should
me
I
a
know?
safe, loving,
Orders
caring
came down
new
to
home
watch
with
the
a friend.
captives.
There
I
have been
didn't
a
ask
tremendous
why.
amount of inaccurate
I
statements
should have,
regarding
but
Purr Cat
I got a
Cafe on
daughter.
several social media
Mother has
fronts.
mercy.
And again, I want
You'd
to
let
address
that
your
Malcolm
concerns.
murder a prisoner.
Again, I apologize for not handling Purr's Facebook page
Let me
as
think.
professionally as I
Yes,
could
some
have. I certainly have
Argonian
made my
relic,
mistakes
maybe?
and am working hard to improve
really
in this
have
area.
no idea
I would
what
like
the
to
remnant
share the
is.
following facts with you that may provide you with reassurance that I
So the
absolutely have
blackguards
the
seek
best
the
interests
remnant.
of
Cannot be
health,
sure,
welfare,
but that
and
is no
safety
bad.
at Purr.
Yep,
Purr has
I
a
live.
10-feet glass
Brave,
vestibule
Ojel.
that was built with the safety
But
of the
foolish.
cats in mind. Patrons will need to
Thank
be
you.
buzzed into Purr via a Purr
I'm
staff
finished
member.
with the blackguards.
The
You
buzzer is
have
at
my
the reception
word.
desk. The vestibule was built this way so there would be no danger of the cats getting out of the building
You
and
made
into
the right
street.
decision,
There is a
Biko.
kitty door
Thank
built
you.
in the door leading down to the basement.
the Ojels
of
have
Purr.
learned about
This
the
was
remnant
built
of
for the
Argon.
cats to have an
Something I
opportunity
cannot
to go to the
discuss
basement
for
and
now.
seek solitude and rest
I
if they
hiss
would like
with
to.
fury.
I do not have very
How
good
did
photos
these
of the
Ojel
basement.
beasts
As soon as
learn
I
about
do,
the
I will
remnant?
absolutely post
We
them
will
to
find
Facebook.
out, Jackson.
A great deal of
Provided
the
you do
inaccurate
not kill them
information
all.
being posted to many social media outlets has significantly delayed our opening for many reasons. I am working with Boston's Veterans Association to have a feline veteran program. Purr has plans to bring our cats to a senior citizen center in the neighborhood to be therapeutic for their residents. We are working with the Jewish Family and Children's Services Center in Brighton as well. They have a program in which the individuals volunteer at local businesses to gain skills that will hopefully lead to future employment. Many of the adults working with this great center are planning to volunteer at Purr in hopes of gaining skills for future employment. The program is called Pathways to Employment. Finally, I would like Purr to also be a food pantry in the future. Purr also is planning to open Purr Complimentary for certain groups, such as senior citizens, autistic individuals, and veterans, etc. I've spent close to 2 years now working diligently to open Purr because I have a mission to help animals. Purr will be a means to educate our community to be responsible pet owners. I have always dreamed of opening my own business, and particularly one working with animals. I have been very upset regarding previous reviews, and it has caused me to take pause in my efforts. However, I have lifted my spirits and am working diligently again now to complete my mission. Thank you
You're
please in
back.
advance for taking
Fabulous.
consideration of Purr's
Some of my
goal
missing
and
friends
provide
already
positive
tracked me
support
down,
for a place
telling
that I
tales of a
truly
deer.
believe
So
will
the
be doing
Deadwater
excellent
tribe?
work
Well
for
then,
cats,
there's not
as
a
well
moment
as
to
trying to
lose.
help the
We
community
will redouble
as well.
our efforts.
Meow.
We cannot allow those
Meow.
thugs to claim something as valuable as the
comments
remnant.
immediately were dubious about
But I'm
Diane's
getting
claims,
ahead of myself.
most of all
We
about the
should probably
basement, which
discuss
had
this matter
attracted
with
many of them
Cassandra.
in the first place. One of these
Well,
commenters, however,
no surprise
claimed to be
there.
a professional
Even
photographer
so, they
and
must
offered to provide
understand
free
we only mean
services,
to help.
granting Diane full
Circus
rights
knows
to the
my motive.
images. These offers received no reply. Soon, however,
So,
Diane
you
would
returned
announce an event
victorious.
that, if it
You
were
have
to
my most
happen,
sincere
would render
gratitude,
images
and
taken
that of the
herself
explorers you rescued.
unnecessary.
Now, unfortunate, I can tell you as an expert of Argonian archaeology, the idea of one of those ignorant thugs handling such a valuable antiquity makes me... I have some experience
On October
with wealth.
4th, an email was
Jangling
sent to
gold
those on
in
the
front of a
Purr
pack
Cat
of
Cafe's
cutthroats
mailing
is an
list,
act of
inviting
crude
them to an open house
We
in
can
the
discuss
afternoon
that in a
weekend.
moment.
They stated that they would
First,
be able to host
we owe you a
35 people
significant
at one
sum. It's-
time for
you've
tours
done
at
a
the
great
top of
deal
each
for
hour,
us already.
and that there would
I wonder
be,
if you're
quote,
willing to
no
do
more
a
than
bit
10
more.
cats.
I do.
After
One of
posting
your
a few
native
old
companions
photographs to
warned
the
you off
Facebook
of it,
page in
didn't
an
they?
attempt to kindle
Believe
interest,
me, I
however, they all
sympathize.
were met with
But
continued
despite my
admonishment for
lifestyle,
Diane's behavior.
I'm still
And
in
in
a-
response,
Yes,
she posted a
you are
stock
clearly
photograph
the
of a
best at
cat
what you do.
at 2:30
I can think
a.m.
of
with
no
the
one more
text,
qualified
Boston,
to lead this endeavor.
clearly there is no interest
You and
in Cat
Zukas have grown
Cafe
close,
here.
correct?
No meow,
He knows a great
meow,
deal.
purr for
Thank
Boston.
you for your efforts thus
This
far,
post was
and your
interpreted by a
achievements to
local
come.
news source to mean that the cafe would no longer be opening.
Oh.
She also took the time on October 6th to reply to a commenter who was demanding updates on the space for the cats. Quote, Kayla, why don't you come to the open the house this weekend then? I am very certain that coming to an open house would be more effective than posting negative shit on the internet about a business you know nothing about, but what the hell? I am just going to respond like you do. Here is my first round. I will be negative and just beat the shit out of a new business to save animals because it feels cool. I have never been to Per Cat Cafe. Let me ask you a question, Kayla. What does a cat cafe do? Why do you surprise me with your intelligence? You are so brilliant. Send me an email? End quote. Later that day, a volunteer named Chandler made a post clarifying that, indeed, the open house would be continuing as scheduled and that Diane would be there with her cats. However, it was clear that Chandler was ignorant of many of the details of the event, writing, "This has been very confusing for everyone involved." On the first day of the open house event, however, Diane made a peculiar post to the Facebook page. She wrote, "Good morning, Boston. Per is looking forward to hosting our open house today and tomorrow. We also wanted to share a video from Kathleen Grace."
No way.
Beneath this writing was a video Kathleen had made for her YouTube channel in which she shares some of her pet play fetish gear with her viewers. Kathleen was granted no chance for a rebuttal as Diane had blocked her from the Facebook page, but sometime afterward, Kathleen deleted this video from YouTube. The response to this post was universally negative, with many people expressing confusion as to why Diane would post an ex-employee's fetish video to her business page. Later that morning, Diane posted again, writing, "I do not understand how there could be so much negativity, cruelty, and slander to a business that is not even open yet, and most importantly, trying to save animals. Is that a bad thing?" When the post was archived, there were 88 comments, but it's likely that before it was deleted, there were well over 100. However, at long last, Diane gave the commenters the photographs of the basement for which they'd been asking, but it showed little more than what had been there in the earlier photographs, with objects like scratching posts, nests, and tents scattered haphazardly across the basement floor. At last, the weekend of the open house had come. Several people who had raised concern on Facebook went on the first day and posted their findings. Despite her hopeful claims of no more than 10 cats, Diane had only brought 4. Her 35 people at once limit proved similarly inaccurate, with apparently no more than a few people at once in the storefront. One visitor, going by Michelle, noted that the 10-foot vestibule that Diane had touted was not prepared. Rather, the first door was an automatic sliding door, while the door on the inside was simply a locked swinging door, and while she was holding the inner door open for her friend, the automatic door opened as well, though no cats escaped. Another woman, named Marie Billiel, live-tweeted about her time at the cafe. Some of the tweets read, quote, "At the Boston Per open house."
Half in the bag. I can't talk too long. I gotta poo.
I'm on moviediaper.com. I'm trying to see what new films have been released, Jay, to see what we should go watch this afternoon.
How about the new Rambo movie?
No, I hear that movie makes you racist.
Oh. Well, at least in a couple weeks we have the Joker movie to look forward to.
No, I hear that movie makes you sexist.
Oh. Well, maybe we should just watch The Fanatic with John Travolta.
Sure, but I hear that movie makes you mentally challenged.
Too late.
Well, Jay, before we go watch this film, let's see the Rotten Tomatoes score.
Oh my God!
Is it difficult to find famous people's houses?
I use my Star Map app.
Ruhiva,
Be careful.
welcome.
I don't want you
Don't think I
accused
see
of
you
stalking.
here, boy.
Hey, you can't just come to my private residence looking for me.
Well, today we skipped the new Brad Pitt film Ad Astra.
Thinking.
Ed Asner?
Ad Ed Asner.
Is it Brad Pitt as Ed Asner?
It's a biopic.
Look at it,
Ed
Iskanos.
Asner as a younger
This was
man.
Saxleel.
He did.
Rest with
Ed
the roots
Asner
of the
did go
Hist.
to Mars, though.
That is an
in his
aberration.
dreams once.
You'll
So
poison
this is
the
based
Hist
on
with its
Ed
corruption.
Astra is based on Ed Asner's
You're
dream of going to Mars.
Oh, okay.
I had to scream once. Good of the tribe.
So we skipped Ad Astra
Let the tree
to watch
decide.
a film, an obscure film, for some reason called The Fanatic.
Yes, yes.
Watch out! Watch out! Here's Moosey!
And this is a film that's produced by Redbox.
Yes, because every outlet has to like produce their own original content now. Even Redbox, even the bottom of the barrel, little red machine that you look at when you're leaving the grocery store.
Yeah. But interestingly enough, it's not out in Redbox yet.
No.
I think that would be the first place it should go.
Well, I guess John Travolta had a stipulation similar to his movie Gotti that came out that was produced by MoviePass, which recently died, which I was shocked to find out it was still around. But that was produced by MoviePass, but he was like, it's got to be in theaters. I think it's that like old school movie star ego thing.
Okay.
Where he wanted that movie and this movie to be in theaters for a little bit before being dumped. So it came out in theaters.
The Fanatic did?
The Fanatic came out in theaters opening day. It made $3,000. It played on 52 screens, which was an average of about $60 per theater.
Wow, Space Cops made more money.
That's true.
It literally is true. Oh, well, that's interesting. I did not know it had a theatrical run.
Biko.
They figured it two
I would be
screens.
lying if I
One
said
in
this is
New York and
unexpected.
one in LA.
Welcome to my
Just so
home,
it could get some
Bright
awards
Throat
at it.
Village.
So it could be
Cozier
considered
than
for
Lilmuth,
Academy
I think.
Award.
Absolutely.
Of course you do.
John Travolta.
This matter of the remnant,
Specific
you must understand,
shadow release.
it
He's
is
a movie
fragile as
star.
a marsh robin's
I don't
egg.
know if that
Even
excuses the
so,
other 15
I
movies
trust
he's
your
done
heart,
the last 2
and
years.
truthfully,
John Travolta
we could
is
use the
Nick
help.
Cage of actors.
Bright Throats are negotiators, not warriors.
But yeah, we are not.
Old Shuvus, you will like
this is not
chiming.
a paid endorsement of this film, even though as
That'll
you'll-
become more clear as time goes on.
You'll soon find out. But we just really wanted to talk about this because it's fascinating. When you see those, like, I think there's a different Travolta movie in the Red Box called Trading Paint,
Yes.
and you see
That's
these
okay.
like kind of, I don't want to say washed up, these celebrities that have been around a while, appearing
Little
in
Zucus,
lower
come to
budgeted
visit your old
movies
friend
that
in
are
the
made
glade
to
of
look like big
chimes.
budget movies in the Red
Here.
Box that
Often made overseas.
often
Stood only as tall as the kepo grass. And you, blackguard slayer, what can this stiff-legged crafted remnant of... My. This is no small question, Zuka's friend. Look around you. Each of these chimes sing out a tangle of melodies, but only one tangle. Ha! The Ogel is clever, Zukas. Yes, my hands gave birth to every chime you hear. But the remnant, only one chime can sing its truth. One made by sun, locked away, hidden under mud in lost memories. Understand, our exiles did not want this truth drifting free on the wind. But Zukas trusts you, so I will trust you. Go to the Wither Vault. The Wither Vault is well north of the village. I would guide you, but my knees grow stiff as kindling wood. Little Zukas can aid you, I have no doubt.
Cool.
The path to the remnant bends like an oxbow. Let's find this chime. Leaving the glade always puts rocks in my sandals. Sad, you know. One day the two The swamp grows thick here. A far cry from Lilmoth's mud puddles, I think.
Verona? Drula? Where are you two?
Oh, Leviathan Pizzle grows across this glade. A very powerful herb, Biko. I cannot imagine the Brightthroats ever holding territory here. Very little wind, hollow seeds. There it is, just up ahead. This place dries my scales. No good thing comes from stone. Let's make this quick. I fear we will find more than the chime inside this vault. Be careful. The Nahish elders never speak of this place. Not even to me. Stay watchful, Biko. I hear something. The chimes. They sing without wind. Just ahead. Kaok, I hate this.
That's it.
Good work, Biko. Let us get back to Brightthroat Village.
No, it's not.
A beast nesting in the Wither Vault, soiling the chime. My rage quill is engorged.
Be calm, old Shuvu. No one wants to see that.
The wind welcomes you,
Rage
Zukas.
quill.
You have the remnant chime? Please, settle an old lizard's spines. The beast Zukasman, hist be praised. Take the chime to the listening tree and hang it there. When you are ready, clutch this prayer stone and focus.
Okay.
Perfect. Now center yourself in the glade and focus the remnant's mystery on the prayer stone. We seek your guidance and ask the blessing of your song. Sap Mother, Bow Father, please hear our petition and speak the remnant's truth. I hear nothing. A tangle of whispers, nothing more.
That can't be. Wait, I hear it, Shuvu. I hear it. The hist sings the remnant's truth.
Truly? Ha! Ah, little Zukas, I knew you had a chime maker's heart. Come, tell us what you hear.
am confused. Shuvu is the wisest listener in the tribe. How could he hear nothing when I heard it so clearly? He is very old. Maybe he just needs his ear cavity flushed. Smoke of stars to see what once was seen. Sunless sap to hear what once was heard. A bramble of words. I appreciate the Hist's poetry, but this is not an ideal time for it, I think. I do not know. Hopefully Shuvu can teach me how to decipher the words. It will take time, but I will find you if I learn more. Perhaps friend Famia could help also? Or Cassandra. They both know the marsh's stone secrets. They could prove useful.
Hello. Cassandra said you'd be here. There's news. Well, you certainly have a spring in your step. Your work with the Bright Throats went well, I take it. Splendid. Following another lead on the Remnant. Or, potential lead. Someone she worked with before she started funding Cyrodiilic collections. I don't know much more. West of here. Near that spooky prison? Honestly, I missed most of it. Too preoccupied by her bodyguard. Something about how he looks at me. Gives me the shivers, you know? But we have better things to discuss. What did you learn with Zukas? Ritual Argonian poetry. Smoke and sunlit.
Alright. Take a break. Stream. Back in a little bit. At 6.